materials, you'll see that many of the elements of guidance you provided to us will be covered there. We need to look at how children might be affected in health projects, access to education. We need to look at food security and how that affects children. We obviously have to look out for and prevent child labour. There are many areas where children's issues need to be addressed, as there are elements where other aspects of vulnerability, such as the aged, will need to be addressed. In terms of labour issues, we've introduced a new standard, but as Stefan mentioned, and I know many of you have raised, this does not go far to address many people's concerns and demands, and that's something that we're obviously discussing, and I'm sure this will come up later on today. We've introduced the principle of non-discrimination of our projects, which means that we don't want to see people discriminated against on our projects, whether it's in terms of them being disproportionately affected through project impacts or in terms of benefits arising from our projects. We want to see an equitable approach, and we will be looking for systemic issues of discrimination in our due diligence. Similarly, in terms of disability, we need to build into our environmental and social appraisal process the need to look for disability concerns and make sure that they're reflected in our project design. Gender is a huge issue. The bank has done a lot of work in gender, and I know many of you have some concerns about the current wording in the drafts, that you don't think it's strong enough in terms of gender. We have a very strong commitment to gender, and if it's not clear in the draft, we'll make it much more clear. But it's very important for us that gender is addressed in our social and environmental appraisal of projects and managed appropriately. I've already touched on LBGT SOGI issues. Again, it's very important that this is addressed in projects, and where we find that the issue of discrimination or some other element, benefit sharing, arises on projects, we will deal with it in discussions with the LBGT community on the ground in those countries where it may arise. In terms of instrument coverage, the board asked us to review the safeguards as they apply to investment projects, and that's what we've done. There are retrospectives that are looking at the other instruments, policy lending and P4R. Those retrospectives will be looking at environmental and social issues, and we'll learn from any issues that arise from those studies, which will be carried out in the next few months. We've also very much strengthened our approach to stakeholder engagement. We've produced a standard alone on this issue. We've highlighted the importance of disclosing information, not just before board, but through the life of a project. There are much stronger commitments from our side and on the borrower side to disclose information to borrowers and consult with them through the life of a project in a culturally appropriate manner. And we've also built in a stronger requirement with regard to grievance mechanisms on projects throughout the project life cycle. In terms of human rights issues, the environmental and social appraisal process is much more broadened in this current draft and addresses all the key areas of human rights concerns. In terms of biodiversity, we've taken the existing operational policies on natural habitats and forests and broadened the scope of coverage to address all habitat requirements. We've introduced the standard on pollution abatement, which it also addresses climate change and resource efficiencies. We've introduced a risk management approach, which is built into the bank's overall risk rating methodology, which requires us to look at the riskiness of projects, elements of risk, and to manage them accordingly throughout the life of a project. We've built in a stronger focus on supervision and compliance, which is also risk-driven. As I've said, where we need to put more resource on projects to manage issues, we will put more resource and help borrowers to address issues. And the draft provides much more clarity on what we are required to do, what we commit to do as a bank, and what we expect of our borrowers. So there is much more ground to investigate that from an accountability perspective than was available in previous documents, where it's often been a fuzzy line between what the bank is required to do and what borrowers are required to do. And now I'll hand back to Sumia to take us through some of the more complex issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So I think with that, we can plunge straight into the discussion and hear your feedback and your questions. As I said a little earlier, we'll try and do it thematically so that we can go as much in depth into each of the issues that are of concern. The way we'll do it is, if you have a question or comment, to please line up at these microphones. And if you're unable to do so for any reason, then we'll have a microphone brought to you. I'm told that there are people outside. There's an overflow where people are listening, and if anyone there has a question to ask, you can